Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens 17-10 to go 10-7 on the season. They beat the Baltimore Ravens, the number one AFC seed, and possibly make the playoffs. I'm Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We are doing our reactions and takeaways to the Steelers beating the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. The Steelers now own the Ravens in Baltimore. They have not lost this decade. That's 4 in a row in Baltimore that they've won. Going back to 2019 was the last time they lost in Baltimore. Steelers go 2-0 this year against the Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens did play under strength, but you can't take away a win in the AFC North. So let's get into my 6 takeaways and reactions. So that is number 1. The Steelers own the Ravens at home. Steelers get it done away. They've proved it with Big Ben, with Mason Rudolph, with Kenny Pickett. They all can go in there. They can all go win a game. You love to see it. That's what we want to see out of this Steelers. We want to see that hard-nosed football. It is what Mike Tomlin said, according to the commentators before the game. We like playing in Baltimore. That's what happened. That's what they did. They got the job done. Have the Steelers run their way into the playoffs? The running game, 202 yards last week. Today they had over 155 on the ground. It wasn't an easy slog, the 155 they had. But, considering what they were averaging on the season so far, to get 155 against Patrick Queen, against having Trenton Simpson, against their big defensive line as well, this was a good result from the Steelers. It wasn't their full defensive complement from Baltimore, but you still ran 155 yards. And in the wet, look how many times there were forced fumbles. There were possible fumble options. I mean, Steelers could have fumbled the ball over 10 times with the way of how slippery and cold and wet it was there. You saw it. There was only one camera angle they had where there was no rain or condensation. So I love to see it. I love to see that running game there. It cost me a big bet, but it got the Steelers potentially into the playoffs. Doesn't want to see. That is playoff football too. We talked about that this week on the Global Perspective on both the previous show we did and the more state of play for the Steelers right now. And running the football is absolutely essential if you want to win the playoffs. As Shannon White said on our channel on the Global Perspective, hard defense, which they played, and running the football travels well. The Steelers did that this week against the Baltimore Ravens. Pass rush gets it done too. Marcus Golden stepping up. Obviously, TJ is a concern. We'll have to find out over the next few days what that complaint is. Obviously, I think there might have been an option. We don't know definitively what that is. By the time you watch this, maybe it's come out through the Mike Tomlin press conference. However, if it was a case where he could have come back on the field, if they needed to win that, or in a worse situation in terms of being able to win the league, they did have the lead quite early in the fourth. Perhaps that's the case. Perhaps it could be season ending. Perhaps it's more they can now rest him going into the playoffs. If they can make the playoffs, all those things we'll find out. Obviously, it is a concern. But the pass rush still got it done. Alex Highsmith looked like he was running off his feet toward the end. I can't wait to go through and look at his pressure count. He didn't have a sack. He didn't have a tackle for a loss. But by God, did he put pressure on Tyler Huntley. There was a terrible hold with about 7-9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. The Steelers, the refs has got to start calling these. But you saw Marcus Golden, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. Herbie got in there and put some pressure on as well. Wasn't on the stat sheet from a tackles perspective, from what I was able to pull up with the box score with ESPN. But again, I think Herbie may have a couple of pressures when all is said and done, as the stat sites rack up their numbers for the game post-game. Dynamic duo show off their potential for 2024 in 2023. So we've seen big games out of George Pickens the last few weeks. He averaged, over the last 2 games, I think 5.5 receptions per game, 165 yards, over a touchdown. Today it was all about Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's that pass to him. He had probably one in the game. He had 89 yards, 1 TD, 4 from 5. We didn't see any receptions for George Pickens. But these guys together, is it that they're both 2As? Is it that they're both 1Bs? George Pickens one day will be a 1A. It doesn't matter in terms of who's the wide receiver number 1. These guys can do it together. Now, personally, I've had a lot of issues with Deontay Johnson's attitude this season, but if he can get it right off the field, if we can get things and all humming together, these two show what a potent offense they could be together in 2024. You'd love to have seen more from Pat Freiermuth. Even though I've called all season for more short passing to Najee, I thought there were a couple of times in this game where it didn't really work. I thought they were trying to do what they did last year. I want to see more of the big plays. So the dynamic duo of Pickens and Deontay definitely have showed their promise the last 3 weeks, and it's really exciting going into 2024. Well, season 2024, considering it is already the year 2024. Rookies can continue to perform. Enough can't be said about what Joey Porter, what Broderick Jones, what Darnell Washington at times, what Herbig are doing for this team. These guys are stepping up in absolutely big moments. You love to see it from what they're able to do to help this team win games. There weren't any interceptions today, so nothing really there. Joey Porter at times in this game, it wasn't necessarily that he made a big play or anything like it, but he did make life really difficult. And they didn't target him too much. I'll be interested to see when those numbers come out post game as well, the targets from them. But overall, as we wrap up now, what is all the regular season games, you cannot put past what these Steelers rookies have done this season. And how can I look past Keanu Benton? He had 3 tackles in today's game as well. He was up there getting it done. You just can't look past these guys. It's great to see. And really looking forward to what these guys show in their second year, as well as they're complemented by another, hopefully, top-notch draft class from Andy Weidel, Omar Khan, and the Steelers front office. And so the final takeaway and reaction to this is, Steelers fans, steel yourself for a wild week. We've got a wild 24 hours, 48 hours now. Probably more like 48 hours, depending on which time zone you're in, to see what happens. Can the Steelers scrape through? And then if they do, is TJ Watt healthy? Can the offense get it together again after a wet and slippery performance? Can the offensive line? Mason Rudolph credited them in the post in the straight off the field interview after the game. He said, "Thanks for our protection for getting it done." I actually thought there were times their protection was awful today. So they need to get that right. I think he was being polite at best. But if we can, they've now made the playoffs. If they can make the playoffs, playoff football is very different to in-season football. You've got to run the ball. The Steelers do that. You've got to play defense. The Steelers going to do that. Now it's about minimizing mistakes and making sure that it's not routine plays routinely. It's routine plays all the time. Doing routine things all the time. If you do that all the time in a game in the playoffs, you stand a chance at making an impact. So, as I say, Steel fans, steel yourself. It'll be a wild week. Even if they don't make the playoffs, it'll be a wild week with all the end of season stuff that happens. But here's hoping we're here for another takeaway and reactions video next week after the Steelers go into the playoffs and get something done. I'm Matty P. For Steelers Touchdown Under. As always, go Steelers.